This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
So I know we had just talked about it, but I got in today. It was dark as shit and cold, and thankfully it wasn't rainy today. I'm right outside of Philadelphia, and I know you're in a sunny part of the country typically. But how's it feel down there? It looks a little dark as well.
Yeah, well, it's dark. I mean, luckily I live on the west coast of Florida, so it stays, like sunny like an extra 10 minutes compared to everybody else. It's been cold. It's been like in the 50s, which for us is like 30 degrees anywhere else. We pull out the heavy jackets, we pull out the gloves, we pull out the ear warmers, we turn the heaters on. We're driving. And this is really where you get to notice if people are from Florida, have lived in Florida for a few months, or are snowbirds. Because the snowbirds are out right now, like in their party shirts and their shorts, and like, man, this is great. I'm so glad to be out of the Northeast and everywhere else. But for us who are acclimated to it being 70 degrees and warmer every day, it's cold. I haven't been outside grilling like all week because it's just too cold.
50 degrees is shorts weather for me, 100%. I would be wearing shorts, and the wifey would be like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" Because she gets cold up for everything.
But if you came down here and lived here for like 3 months, 6 months, it changes. Like
you just get used to it, right?
Well, we're at sea level, so everything here is at sea level. Typically our temperature never dips below like 65 degrees is probably like the bare minimum. But it's always warm, so you just get used to it. Like even our indoor temperature is regulated. So if you go anywhere in Florida, like to the mall, to the movies, any inside anything, it's always 74 degrees. Like our houses are always set to like 74, 76 degrees. Like it's just a constant. And you just get used to it. So when it's not 76 degrees anywhere, or it's colder, you feel it. And it took me a long time to get used to that, because when I first got here, I was just like, God, it's so damn hot down here. And I came in like October. So when I first moved, it was October. So I went from like New Hampshire October, which was, like 45, 50. It was back to 90 degrees again. I was dying for like the first month. And now 90 degrees is like, oh, this is great. 65 degrees. Oh man, whoa, what's going on? Something's off.
Yeah, it's wild because I know here, like, I want to say 2 weeks ago, it was in the 60s and 70s. Like I wore a hoodie to work, and then I couldn't wear it for like an hour or two. And then it was so bone chilling cold yesterday. I like contemplated just not going into work. That's how, I stepped outside. I was like, this fucking sucks. But anyway, the intro, this is the Drink O'Clock podcast. My name's Rob Valencius, and I have the pleasure of having Bill Harlow with me, who you're an outdoor cooking enthusiast, and I put on here an influencer because you have a lot of stuff going on. So welcome to the podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Dude, I am. The first note I have here is, holy crap, do you make some great looking food on Instagram? Holy shit.
Wow.
Cheers, by the way. I don't know if you're drinking, but.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought it was a rule. Like,
Nice.
I
try not to. It's a rule for me specifically, but I try to make sure that all of my guests are always comfortable. But I will tell you, the secret to it is booze always loosens lips a little bit. So even if you're a little timid, by like 15, 20 minutes in, you're not timid anymore. And sometimes that helps people,
Well, I got to ask, what are you drinking? Because, I mean, that's.
This is my patent old fashioned. I use Bullet Rye. Bullet regular's okay, but Bullet Rye it adds just an extra flavor to it. And I've been trying to get sponsored by these guys, so hopefully one of these days they see my show. But there's this cocktail syrup called Proof. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah, I know what Proof is.
Yeah, it's amazing. They're traditional old-fashioned syrup. It was one of my buddies at work turned me onto it, and you just put half an ounce. Like it's just such a small amount to 2 ounces of whiskey, and it's such like I don't have to put any. I don't have to garnish it. I don't have to do anything. I'm a lazy guy, man, to a certain degree. Like if I come home, I just want to be like boop 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 and throw an ice ball in, and I'm golden. And they make it really simple, and I don't need to do anything extra. I tried to do all the extra, like sugar cubes and muddling, and I'll never forget the first one I made, Bill. I was so proud of myself. I hadn't tasted it yet, and then I spilled it all over the counter, everywhere. And like all you hear out in the kitchen is like "fuck!" I'm like yelling, and the wifey's like, "What's going on out there?" I was like, "I got it. It was perfect," and then I spilled it everywhere. So I'll never know what the first original one tasted like, but it doesn't taste like this. I'll tell you that. Do you like old fashions?
I do like old fashions. Angel's Envy is my normal go to if I'm gonna make
Okay.
one. It's just so smooth. It's small batch. It's just I've been drinking it for a few years now, and I'd love to get sponsored by them too, but I never have featured them in a reel. So maybe I should. Maybe that's the first step of sponsorship.
It's the way to go, man. Or just keep plugging them.
Yeah.
If you plug long enough, one of these days it'll pop. But it's what's the brand you use?
Yeah, Angel's Envy. It's
Angel's Envy.
oh, gotta write it down. It's I mean, Bullet Rye is good, but you get this, you may switch. We may be fighting
Oh,
for sponsorship on this one.
that's a fancy bottle. I like that.
Yeah,
Okay, all
it's
right.
magical. So
I'm gonna see if they have that at the liquor. So the problem, obviously, in the Northeast is, especially in Pennsylvania, it's a Quaker state. So, as progressive as we are as a damn country, Pennsylvania still controls all the liquor. Luckily, grocery stores about 2 or 3 years ago just started getting, maybe it was longer, maybe it was 4 or 5, just started getting wine and beer. But to get liquor, you still have to go to a fine wine and spirit store,
oh
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
state owned. And what do you guys still have? Like what ABCs down there?
Well, no, so Florida's a little bit different. So, we do have separation of grocery and liquor. You can still buy beer and wine in the grocery store, but if you want to buy anything more than that, then it's separate. So even like say, I'll use like Walmart as an example. So there would be Walmart the store, and then outside there's a separate door for the liquor store. That's Walmart liquor store.
So
So you have
stupid,
to,
man.
so you
It's
have,
so
so you can
stupid.
see it, because like some of the grocery stores even have like windows, like where you can like see inside the liquor store. It's like it's right there, right next to the shopping carts. But it's a physical door that you have to like go through and like separate transaction. But we also have these magical liquor warehouses, which are just in itself is thousands of bottles of wine, tons of whiskey, bourbon, anything you can think of. Really good beer selections because it's craft beer, and Florida has a lot of craft beer partners, which are great. Um, and it's just walk in there and you can spend all day just walking around like looking at bottles and like figuring out I want to try this one, or I want to try this one, or I don't even know what this is. Let me Google it. It's a fun experience.
It's have you ever been to New Jersey?
I have been in New Jersey. Yeah.
They have a place called Roger Wilco's, and it's very similar to what you're talking about. But they have everything. So they have liquor, beer, wine, but some of the liquor, they have some of the craziest. I'll never forget. I don't know if you've ever seen this in your life, but they had this whiskey, and I don't know if it was a Japanese whiskey or a sake, but it was in this giant dragon bottle, and it had to be like $150 or $100. It wasn't like an expensive whiskey. You're basically paying for the glass, But
Yeah.
it was this really sick old school like mythical Japanese dragon, and it was. I would go in, I'd look at it, I go, I really want to buy that, and then I'd talk myself out of it, and I'd buy. Normally, I'm a rum guy if I'm drinking mixed drinks, so I get Captain Morgan, and we only live 10-ish minutes from there, so it was always way cheaper to like just drive over the bridge, grab some stuff, and come back. It is not like that anymore because bridges are now like double the price.
Yeah, it's $20
So it's
across the bridge versus it used to be just like $3 across the bridge.
yeah, it drives me insane. But yeah, it was one of the coolest bottles, and they had like a million things. So if I had a party, I would take some of my buddies. We would go down there and it was like an adult toy shop basically, because it's just liquor, wines, casks. I mean, you name it, they had it. It was just always fun to take people over there. But
Yeah, the best part, like, is the one I go to is it opens early, so it's open like at 9 a.m. So you can go there at like 9 a.m. and you'd be surprised who's there at 9 a.m. buying like cartfuls of liquor. It's like, wow, really, 9 a.m. Okay, guys.
it's a different story. It's so it's funny you said that because I had to get liquor I think 2 weeks ago on a Sunday, and I had to go at they open at 11 here for the liquor stores, and I was like, shit, I ran out, or I was like running out, and I'm like, do I really want to go? I was like, fuck it, I'll go. Going to the liquor store when they open, it's kind of a depressing place because the people that are typically in there at like a minute after they open, they need that. It's not like a want,
Yeah.
It was like, I need that. And it's always just, I accustom it to, have you ever been to a casino on like a Saturday morning?
Yeah.
It's a scary place. It's
Yeah.
just, it's like homeless people and seniors, and that's really all you got. There's no like in between, or you have people like me who had just stayed up all night and was
You're
it was
looking,
like
you're looking for that Grand Slam breakfast at
yeah,
to get
yeah,
going for the next day.
yeah, it was an interesting thing, but yeah, it's yeah, let's onto fun stuff, on the fun stuff. Yeah, your food looks, the things that you do, and I do video. So what I'm going to do here is for the people that watch on YouTube, so we'll put this up on YouTube. So you're Cook with Bill, and I'm trying to think of I love crab legs, dude, and I'm watching this, and I wanted to eat this so bad. And I guess I never realized what you can do with a grill when it comes to something like this. Like, I always just assumed you kind of had to just boil them. What's like the cooking process with putting them in the grill? Do you think it tastes better grilled over like boiled?
Yeah, so what I do is I actually smoke them. So they're sitting on the cold side of the grill for about 30 minutes. So usually there's a wood chunk in the charcoal, so get that nice smoky flavor, creeping into the crab leg. So I started doing this over the summer, just kind of as I wonder if this will work. And I was Googling it and like saw these variations of it, but it was mostly just, put crab legs on hot grill, flip it for like 2 minutes and it's done, which was really just to heat it up. There's no like cooking with it. So I started doing this over the summer, kind of as one of those, hey, crab legs are on sale. Like how bad can I mess this up if they're on sale? And,
Yeah.
and it just worked. It's 30 minutes on the cold side, so it's smoking, so the crab meat is warming up, which is really what you're doing. Crab legs are already cooked when you buy them, anyways, and all the smoke goes into the meat, and then I put them on the hot side of the grill for about 2 minutes, just to crisp up the shells, and the flavor on these is just incredible.
And you put, in this instance, you put Korean barbecue. I know you've cooked these a couple times, but in this instance you used Korean barbecue. What does that taste like?
Oh, it tastes like just delicious.
I don't know if I've
it,
ever had Korean barbecue, let alone seasoning, but just Korean barbecue in general. I know a
yeah.
lot of people like
So
it.
it adds a little bit. It's a little more peppery, a little more salt to it. It just has this great taste to it. I usually do like Creole seasoning when I do them because I like things a little bit more textured and spiced. But if you like scroll down, there's like another crab leg, like maybe like six down below that.
Oh yeah, okay, here you go.
Yeah, and that was done with more of a Creole spice, but I use different charcoal and different things with it. But the smoky flavor is really where it like matters. Like the spice on the outside is when you're peeling it apart, when you're grabbing the meat, like that taste goes from your fingers to the crab, um, and that's where you really taste it. But the Korean spice, the Creole spice, as long as it's got a little bit of kick in it, it just makes it. Um,
That looks. I was on your Instagram for probably half the day, and I had already gone through your Instagram before when I sent you a message, but after just spending the like I'm sitting at work and I'm like I want crab legs so bad right now, and you just made it look so like simple and easy, and I think a lot of your videos. I liked the pizza one. I watched this one, which was super simple. I mean, literally, you just put the pizza dough out like that, threw some sauce on it, and before you know it, it's done. And I like that a lot of like your comments are the same thing. It's like, wow, that looks delicious. You make it simple to do. So you're doing a great job, and like your presentations are great, man. I'll all right. I gotta stop because the more I look at that, the more I'm gonna want to eat more of it. Let me just cool. So I guess I wanted to start with in my podcast. This is more of a show about you. So we deter and we go off topic, and yeah, I mean it comes with the booze, right? But
by the way, we got to cheers.
yeah, man, absolutely. Um, so good. Um, the whole point of this show is to really kind of figure out like, well, who's the person behind the handle, right? So for me, it was like you get to show your food and stuff, and you inject some of your things into your videos. But my podcast is more about like, well, who are you, right? Who's Bill? And obviously, this wouldn't for me. I want to know. Hopefully, other people want to know. Is let's talk a little bit about what got you into cooking. Do you have a cooking background? Was it something you were always into? And then, you can kind of go into what made you want to show off and show your beautiful food presentations on Instagram.
Yeah. So for me, not a cook by any stretch of anything. Close as I
You
come to
could have
even
fooled
being.
me.
Yeah, I fool myself some days too. So I mean that's the fun part, right? I mean, when I was a kid, like my grandmother, she cooked, family meal. She was a cook at a church daycare, and that was probably the closest I came to being like around a cook. Every family holiday and stuff, she was cooking everything in the world. That was maybe the closest I got to being like a chef, right? And I go in the some lived with her for a year when I was in first grade, and like every morning she'd take me like into work and like made sure I had breakfast before I went to school. And that was probably the closest
Grandmoms, man.
I
Grandmoms.
came to like a commercial kitchen, like as anywhere in my life. I worked at KFC for like 2 years in college, which, I don't know if that's really, it's cooking, but it's very prescribed cooking. It's like step one, step two, step three, drop in oil, pull out an oil, whatever it may be. I think that's kind of, for me, that was like cooking. After that, it was like no more cooking. Enough cooking to like stay alive. I can, it was, simple dishes, simple meals, simple everything, or, just stop through, drive through on the way home, or hey, what's off the hot bar at the grocery store? I think all of us do that. And
Yeah.
then we had, COVID where it wasn't as easy to do those things. I went from having an hour commute to having my commute was walking across the house to the other side of the house. That was my commute. Like a lot of
It was
people,
great, wasn't it? It was
it's still
great.
it's still great because I still work at home, so I'm still living the dream. So
Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. My commute's 45 minutes. So
yeah, so
I feel
I've
you
had
there.
those commutes. Like I've always had like a commute everywhere I've lived. So now I didn't have that commute, but at the same time, the things around me for substance were closing down. Restaurants were closing. I lived in an area that didn't have like wasn't dense. So, choices were, like pizza if they were open, or, maybe Burger King if they were open, because everyone was struggling
Yeah.
with people, people are sick, people are scared to come to work, deliveries, everything was different. So started, wanting more than just the basic things that I was cooking, or, or the easy things I could get. So I started, like a lot of people, yeah, I got some time. I'm going to Google something, and because I miss it. And it's like this, it didn't seem that hard to make things, or at least it, like some of the things I was looking for, like, I could cook a steak, but it wasn't a steak like now. It was a steak that put it on the grill, let it burn for a couple minutes, flip it over, let it burn for a couple minutes, let it burn some more, and hope the temperature's right on the inside. Sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't. And
Yep.
a lot of it was, the point of me was just curiosity, like, why can't I do this? I can do all these other magical things at work and in life, but why can't I cook like just a steak to the point where it's better than okay? Um, so spending a lot of time just looking at things and writing down things that I wish I could have Indian food, or I really want some Chinese food, or I really want, crab legs. Crab legs evolved over the last 6 months, but but
Delicious.
even basic things like that, it was just, how do I get more than that, because I'm stuck at home, and grocery stores open. I can go there, wear a mask, go buy groceries, but what do I even buy? Like, do I even have the right seasoning? Do I have the right spices? Do I have anything that's going to make this food better than what I'm making right now? So I started just experimenting with cooking and taking the time to research and learn, and it became a little bit of a hobby. During that time where it was kind of like, I think I can make this. Or I'm flipping through ads, because you start getting a lot of ad for food things. Uh, Thank you, Amazon, Meta, Facebook, everybody else. Uh, but they were displaying things that sometimes I didn't even know what it was. It just looked good, and you start clicking, and then you get in that path of clicking of, okay, I think I could do this. Maybe I can do this. Oh, I don't even have any pans or seasoning to even try this one, but maybe I could. Maybe I could do it a different way. So through experimentation, I started just making things and got a little proud of it, because it was starting to look edible. It was starting to taste edible, and that was the big one. It was edible. It wasn't like, oh man, this is mush, but it was edible. So I started posting things to my personal Instagram, and started to get it. Like a couple of friends were like, "Oh, this looks good. Oh, this looks great." After about 6 months of that, they're like, "Can you stop doing this? Because we're eating out of cardboard boxes, and we're eating like takeout, and it's questionable takeout because it's not our normal takeout place, because our normal takeout place is closed." Um, so on a whim one night, I just said, someone told me, "Why don't you just create another Instagram and just post it there? If we want to look at it, we can. But if we want to look at all the other stuff you're doing, we can do that too." And so I started it almost 2 years ago, and since then, it started out with just pictures, and I posted like a steak the first night, and like 5 people liked it. And it was very exciting, because these were 5 people I don't know. They're like, "Wow, that
Yeah.
looks," it was like, "Wow, they like my food. All right, this is awesome. No one else likes it this much, but 5 people did," and it was exciting, right? So the next day, posted something else, and almost 700 posts later, I'm still posting every day, and progress from photos to video, and I the photo part was harder than the video, to be honest. Um, because the
Oh, I
photos
can
got
imagine.
photos got to be perfect. It's got to be framed. It's got to be lighted properly. You can fake a photo. Not that anybody fakes photos on Instagram, but you can fake a photo really easy. Versus video is a little bit harder to fake, but it also makes it more real. And I noticed when I started switching to video, there was more questions, there was more interaction with it. It wasn't more like, "Oh, that looks good." It was like, "Oh, what's in that?" Like middle of the video, there's like something there. Like, can you tell me more about that? And along the way, more people started liking my things. I started following other people that I liked and were influencing the way I was cooking, or maybe not the way I was cooking, but they were making things that I either didn't know what they are. Or I was just really interested in what they were making. Because I didn't know, there's so many regional dishes in the United States. There's international dishes. I kind of gravitated towards more of those international dishes, and barbecue kind of jumped in too. It went from grilling to, I bought a smoker like everybody else. It uses pellets. And it was good because I didn't understand hardly anything about smoking meat other than there's wood and there's meat. That was my definition of like smoking. And
that would be mine as well. I'm like a normal I'm
yeah,
like a normal person.
and like the smoker, it I'm not going to say it cheated my learning, but it sped it up, quite a bit, because then it was about time and temperature, and maybe not as much on the flavor profile, because smokers do a good job of a lot of things, but flavor profile, no matter what you put on it, it comes out tasting about the same. Um, but it definitely started increasing my vocabulary. It allowed me to ask people questions, which I wasn't able to do before, other than how often should I flip that steak on the grill so it doesn't burn on the outside? That was the level of question I went to.
Which is mine.
Yeah. Well, if you're cooking this type of meat, what should I be looking out for? What temperature range should I be at? Should I, salt it before I cook it? So should I brine it? Should I marinate it? And it just increased the number of questions I could ask. And by asking questions, I got more curious too, and just learned more and appreciated more of what people were doing, that I really just never even noticed.
Yeah, I mean, one, I guess what you could say is I'm a basic bitch when it comes to grilling out. I could definitely be better. I will say this past summer, I grilled out more than I have in my entire adult life. And I think it was just because, we were just in the mood to, eat burgers, and I cooked chicken, steak. This was the first year I put salmon. We like to eat salmon in cut up in chunks. So I got creative with, tinfoil and butter, and we're pretty basic with that. But I can see the allure of making something that tastes good, and then, if someone likes it and they're asking you questions, I could see you kind of wanting to do it better and try different flavor. I would love to do that. I feel like I need to do that. But I'm always afraid especially on the grill, because the grill, I don't have a $1,000 grill. It's it was like $180 at the end of summer a couple years ago at Lowe's. So the temperature gauge on there, I feel like it's not the most accurate. It's there, but it's also sometimes way off. And I feel like for me, I'm always worried. I'll go to Whole Foods and I'll get something that looks really good, and then I'll throw it on there, and I'm just gonna fucking burn it, or I'm gonna destroy it, and then it's just a waste. And then I got to go back to the wifey who's sitting in here starving. Sorry, I fucked up our dinner. Where are we ordering from DoorDash? And I'm sure that's probably a lot of people's worry. They're gonna fuck it up, so they don't try new or interesting ways to cook stuff.
Hey man, what's your bacon?
You gotta tell everybody what that means first.
It's that extra side topping or main course in life that makes everything about your day even better.
Whether it's movies, music, cooking, paranormal, video games, whatever it is that helps you unwind, maybe even get a little bit inspired. We talk to hot new bands.
We are Felicity.
Hey, this is Bradley from Emerosa.
TV personalities.
Hi, my name is Rachel Pizzolatto.
Hi, my name is Patty Negri.
Wrestling personalities.
Hi everybody, I am Eric Bischoff, WWE Hall of Famer, the Godfather here.
Actors.
This is Sean Kanan. Thank you for joining us.
Fellow podcasters.
Emo Social Club.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dave Schrader. Pretty much any like-minded creative across all facets of the entertainment industry.
You can check out Bacon Is My Podcast on all streaming platforms, as well as the Strangerhood TV YouTube channel. New episodes dropping every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Listen in when we find the answer to the question,
what's your bacon?
Well, I mean, I still mess things up. That's nothing's always perfect, and even those really good days where I feel like I've made a really good dish, and there's some days where I'm like, wow, this was good. But then there's days where you have something that comes out great, and I have one of those this past week where I still in my brain am saying it's the best plate I've ever made in my life. And this is 2 years after like this whole cooking adventure, and I don't think I would be able to replicate that meal. And I think that's what separates me from being a hobby cook compared to a chef. Because a chef at a restaurant, expectation is you're going to plate that every night. Whereas I had this moment where it's like, this is the most amazing plate I've ever made, and I hope I can replicate it. Maybe not.
So what was the plate? I got to know.
Yeah, so it was pork chops. I made kind of rustic mashed potatoes and had a cranberry and orange relish on top of it, and just everything came out perfect. Yeah, and it's one of those moments where it's like I was even sending pictures of it to like friends of mine, like this is the best plate I've ever made. Like I was just that excited about how good it was. And usually I don't impress myself. It's usually like, okay, this is like it's a meal, it's sustenance, it's good. But this one, for whatever reason, just like I ate it and I was like, oh my god, this is like the epitome of like a meal, and it's just one of those moments, and it's hard to get those.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. So I've had a couple things like my family, we're big pasta people. So I actually do enjoy cooking, and I'm the cook here. Like if we're going, out of the realm of normality. But I'm really good at making like lasagna from scratch, stuffed shells, baked ziti, things like that. And I think for me, and like I'll do like party stuff. Like I have a pizza dip that's super, super easy that I got from online maybe 15 years ago that I make. And I bring it, it's my staple thing that I bring to parties and people love it. And it's literally anybody could do it. It would take them, 2 minutes to put together and then you just put it in the oven. But there's and maybe you can attest this, but there's something about making a really good dish, like just making something that you built from scratch and having other people enjoy it and them tell you, and I'm sure that's kind of the same concept with Instagram, right? But to have them tell you, dude, that was one of the best things I ever ate, or that was so good, like give me the recipe or whatever that is. But I love doing that, like bringing my stuff to parties or cooking out at my mom's or whatever, and there's just this cool feeling that you get, and I'm sure you can agree.
Oh, absolutely. I think for me, like a steak night, like having people over, making steaks for other people. For me, I think that's kind of where my sweet spot is, right? And I think that's kind of what attests to kind of that sense of like, yeah, I did something good. Um, you know, Cooking a steak, and I've had friends come over, like have a steak, and then they like had that first bite, and they're just like, this isn't like, what did you do to this steak? This is like so much better than any steak I've ever had. And when you hear that, it's like, wow, I did something, I did something right.
All
But
right.
then they call you like a month. They call you like a month later, and like, I hate you. Every time I've been out to get a steak now, it sucks because I'm thinking about what you did versus what I'm getting at like Outback or like even Ruth Chris. People told me like I was at Ruth Chris, I had the steak, it was okay, but I'd rather go to your house and have a steak. And that to me is like the testament of good because you're changing the norm. You know,
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, like the pizza dip. That's your staple, right? And everybody who's had it is probably like, yeah, Rob better bring his pizza dip or we're gonna be really pissed off. And
Yeah.
and I feel like steak is probably that dish for me. There's other things that wings and things that people come over and have, but at the end of the day, it's like we want a steak. And for me, like I cook steak, fairly regularly, but for me when I have it, it's good, but it doesn't have the same sense. Maybe because I eat it, often enough where it's kind of not lost, but I expect it to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Like if I do a bad job on a steak, like I'll know, like I screwed that up. But someone
Steaks
else,
like that anniversary food, that birthday food, because like people are going out and they'll get a steak, right? It's
yeah,
not, and I think that's where that, and like that's the same for us. I mean, sometimes I'll buy a steak and I'll cook it on the grill, or I have a cast iron that I'll cook here, but it gets a little messy inside. I'd rather cook it on the grill. But there's a certain stigma with that where it's like, oh, a steak's like a special occasion thing, and people don't eat it as often as they should. And steaks are great, man. I would be on the campaign of you should have a steak once a week
yeah, and I probably do
if you
steak.
can afford it.
Yeah, I probably do steak once a week. And luckily I have some really good partners who help me out with keeping meat in my freezer, which really kind of helps me decide what I'm going to cook versus I got to go to the grocery store, I got to go to farmer's market, I got to figure out what to buy for the week. Usually there's stuff hanging around where it's like, okay, what am I making for side dishes? That's usually the harder part of my decision of like, what vegetables do I need to buy? What grains do I need to buy? Am I making pasta this week? Because it happens. And but again, it's thinking about it through that lens versus, like the proteins are already there. What am I going to cook around it so I have a balanced meal, not just caveman diet all the time?
Yeah, and I will say this, and look, I love my mom to death. She always made dinner every day. There was always dinner at the house. But we grew up. We didn't have a whole lot of money. And we were probably barely lower middle class. But it turned me off of steak and pork chops because my mom wasn't getting grade A shit. we're talking like Monday morning strip club steaks type of thing, so, or even pork chops. I actually haven't eaten a pork chop since I left my mom's house, I think, because it turned like, it was one of those, and listen, Mom, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, I love you to death. But you'd cut the pork chop. It was real rough, you take the bite, you're like, and it's like a 4 or 5 minute chew per bite. And it turned me off of pork chops. And it was something she made once every maybe 2 weeks or whatever. Her staple dish was her pasta. Her pasta is still her staple dish, and it's fucking amazing. But, she hand makes the meatballs and all that shit. But the damn pork chops she made, dude, it just turned me off. Haven't had them since.
Well, you gotta come to Florida. I'll fix that for you.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta come down there and have one of your steaks now. You got me thinking. We love. There's a place called Ocean Prime. I know they have them in Florida. Yep. They're kind of all over the place, but they're one of our favorite places to go. Their steaks are great. Their seafood's phenomenal. They have sushi. Their sushi's great. They have little fucking I know they go above and beyond when it comes to the free bread. And I always tell people this because you go in and, you get your normal traditional bread, but with them, they also have mini hot, warm pretzel sticks. And, we go there on our birthdays typically, and we're always like, hey, my significant other, they love the pretzel sticks. Can you just bring out a whole bowl of pretzel sticks? And, you get the butter, the hot, warm butter. Oh, man, I could. Talking to you, I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I haven't eaten dinner yet. And I'm like, I am starving. Oh my God. But so look, you had so many things on your Instagram in terms of, different plates that you made. I mean, pasta, pizza, burgers, steak, the lovely crab legs and other seafood and shrimp. And what was like a favorite recipe of yours that either you've made or just something that you really enjoy making?
That's a hard one because for me it's kind of mood based. It's what I'm in the mood for. It's you know like the pork chop I just mentioned, like that magical pork chop. Like when I was going into it, it wasn't I'm going to make this magical pork chop. It just happened, and
Yeah.
and I want to make it again, but I don't want to make it again soon because I'm worried that I'm going to do such a bad job on it. It won't be the same. Um, but steaks obviously. I mean, they're always fun to make. They're always good. Wings are something that I make them a couple different ways, and it's one of those that I never quite know how they're going to come out because I never make them the same way, probably ever. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not as great, and I have like 4 bags of wings in my freezer right now that are all like experiment things that I'm going to try out over the probably the next couple of months just to see if they succeed or not succeed. But it's like my
You're like
wife
a
will.
mad scientist of cooking. I
Well,
like it.
well, well, the science part is fun. Like the
Yeah.
experimentation is fun because like I said before, I'm not a traditional cook in any way. Like I've never taken a culinary class. I've never really worked in a kitchen in any. KFC doesn't count as because it's all script. You do this, you
Yeah.
do this, you mix this, and you're done. Um, but the experimentation part is a lot of fun for me. Because by nature I'm very inquisitive. I have a lot of curiosity about things, and you see things on Instagram and YouTube of people making things, and they're either in the catering business or restaurant business, or they just been around cooks all their lives and they know how to do things, and I don't. So I get to experiment of I think this is how they made this, or wow, that took a lot of time to make that. Can I shortcut that? Because I can't spend 8 hours like rolling pasta, making meatballs, and putting this dish together. Like, can I do this in like an hour, or can I separate the cook so I do part of it, before work, and maybe I do part of it at lunch, and then do the rest of it after dinner. But along the way, I'm doing all those same steps, or shortcutting the process so that when it is time for like cooking dinner, it's mostly ready and I can just go.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, other folks, like, oh, I spent all afternoon working on this. That's great. I wish I had the time to do that, but
Don't
I'm
we
working.
all?
I'm working all day. I can't just separate it. So there's some mornings I'll be up at like 7 o'clock in the morning, like slicing vegetables or doing prep work so that maybe at lunchtime I can do 30 minutes of like, well, if I assemble this part of it, things are good, and then when it hits 5:30, 6 o'clock, I can jump in and finish it off. Um, or like sous vide is probably the thing I probably most experiment with because it's fun science for me. Um, and it's something that I used to joke about because a lot of restaurants use sous vide to shortcut their cooking when they're cooking at mass. I used to always joke about Applebee's, like, oh, let's just boil and bag. And now I do it. So I feel like I can't make that joke anymore because it's like, I'm doing it too. And, but it's fun, because I have this thing that hasn't gone to Instagram yet, and maybe by the time you post this, it'll be like out on Instagram. So preview, not preview, for those listening. Um, I completely reverse engineered one of my own cooks of cooking a brisket. Uh, usually brisket, throw it on the smoker, let it go till it hits a certain temperature, and then you take it off, and either you wrap it or you do some other fun things to kickstart it, or you just let it go for another 12 hours. And I didn't want to spend all that time cooking a brisket because
You
I
sound
like.
like me. You sound like me.
Well,
And
and
probably
I enjoy
half
the.
the other people.
And I don't, I think everybody. I don't think anybody will flat out say I like cooking a brisket because it's a labor of love. Um,
Yeah.
and usually that labor of love is on the weekend. You have a 6 pack of beer with you, and you're like, "Yep, time for another beer. Oh, need to go check the brisket. Oh, beer brisket, right? So that's the fun part of cooking a brisket. But at the same time, it's all about time. It's about temperature. It's about your seasoning. There's so many things. And if you ask 20 people how to cook a brisket, you get 20 answers. So I figure why not have a 21st answer? And so I smoked it. Then I put it in a bag. Then I put it in water to let it finish cooking in sous vide, which is not anywhere. I'll probably be shunned by barbecue people for even once I post this because they're like, "What the hell?" But I was thinking about what you do when you cook a brisket. It's the science behind it. How you rest it, how you let it cool down, and I eliminated all that by using sous vide just to do it all at one time, and it came out way better than expected. Would it win a barbecue contest? Probably not, because they'd see the bag and like, oh, you just bought this at Costco and you just boiled it. But
so can you explain to my listeners? So the sous vide method, is that you kind of make it, freeze it, and then recook it? Is that?
No, actually, so I'll use the steak example because it's
Okay.
probably the easiest one that's relatable. So how do you like your steak? Do you like it medium, medium rare, medium well?
As an adult, I've grown into doing it medium. When I was a kid, it was medium well. Like I didn't want to see any blood, but when you're a kid, you don't realize that that's where all the flavor comes from.
And it's
But
not even blood;
medium.
it's like all the good stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
fat.
it's the good stuff,
medium
right?
is what I like. Yeah.
Yeah. So medium is typically, we'll just say it's 132 degrees. Some people say it's 125, but it sounds like you like yours a little more cooked. So we'll just say
Yeah.
it's 132 degrees. So when you typically cook a steak, whether it's on a pan or it's on a grill, you're not cooking at 132 degrees. You're cooking at like 400 degrees. You're cooking at 350 degrees, whatever the pan is, or your heat source. So all that heat is going in on the outside of the steak to get to the middle to get it to 132 degrees. However, the outside of the steak is like 200 degrees. So it got that color on it. You got the nice crisp on it. But that's not 132 degrees. What you want on the inside is what you really want. You want that nice bite of like red meat, right?
Yeah.
So when you cook it sous vide, so you vacuum seal everything in bags. You can put butter, seasoning, whatever you want inside the bag, and the water is 132 degrees. So you're cooking at the temperature you want your meat to get to. So
Interesting.
So obviously higher heat takes longer time. Well, it takes shorter time because you're everything's hot on the outside, and again you're trying to get to the middle at 132. Whereas when you cook in sous vide at 132, your piece of meat comes out all the way across 132 degrees. So that perfect inside that you're looking for, your entire steak is 132 degrees. So it's already perfect all the way around.
Do you still get that same? But you probably still don't get that same like crunch.
Well, so that's where you have to dress it at the end. So you could
Okay.
eat it that way. It doesn't look pretty, but you could eat it that way. But usually what you do at the end is you do a sear. So you could do a sear either in a pan with a little bit of oil, or butter. You can use garlic. You can use other things to flavor the outside. You could also throw it on a hot grill. Do the same type of searing. If your grill has an infrared like attachment to it, it's really hot, really fast. And really what you're doing is you're crisping up the outside so it's more flavorful and it's more presentable. But you can do that with chicken. I do it with chicken all the time because I can drop it in the water. It takes like 2 hours and it's done. It's perfectly cooked all the way through. There's no question, is it done or not? Because I
Yeah.
used to be terrible at cooking chicken. Like, wow,
Oh,
that's
I'm
so.
fucking awful. I'm awful at cooking chicken.
So
It's so
they
bad.
like changed my world when I started doing that because no longer did I have to worry about, is it done? Because sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't.
So
but I could,
do you put it in like so once it's vacuum sealed, does it go into, do you put it in like do you boil it in a pan? Like I guess
yeah,
I'm such a
yeah.
novice.
So
Like how's that work?
yeah, so I'm going to use my fun can here, right? So
Okay.
we'll just imagine this is a sous vide heater, and it has a rod that basically goes into the water. And the rod basically controls the temperature of the water. So I use like a 12-liter tank, but you can use smaller things. Like I use an Instapot pot, like the actual pot from the inside is I usually go to if it's a small dish. And you put it in there, and the actuator actually keeps the water at that temperature that you're going for. So like the steak, 132 degrees. So the water is always at 132 degrees. It's not boiling. You can stick your hand in it. It's gonna be hot. You can go higher or lower with the temperature. Um, but because it's vacuum sealed in there, it's basically just hanging out in the water, coming up the temperature. And this is where like the science and the math part of it make it fun, because the longer it sits in there, it may get more tender, or it may break down because it's been in there too long at that temperature.
Okay.
Because like all things start to break down over time if you keep applying heat to it.
Yeah.
But if you have like
And
a bigger
does that
chunk
make
of
it the brisket like harder, obviously, to do that with, right? Because brisket gets so tender, it just falls apart.
well, that was the fun part. So like on a smoker, you're cooking at 250 degrees, uh, typically, 225, 250, and you're doing that over, like 12 hours, 15 hours. Then you'll pull it out and wrap it and let it rest, and kind of steam itself into a finish where it's kind of breakable apart, still firm but breakable apart. Well, I was cooking the brisket at 140 degrees when it came off the
Ooh.
smoker. So I was going for that target temperature of 140 degrees is what you usually would slice it at. So I'm not going high and coming low. I'm staying low all the way through. So when it came out, it wasn't break apartable tender like a normal brisket, because it never hit that high heat mark. What it did was had that
Yeah.
mellow heat mark. So it was great to slice. It came out more like a consistency of like corned beef.
Oh, wow.
So like corned beef kind of has that, like, it's a little more stringy. It's a little more, it's still tight, but it's still tender, and that's how it came out. So again, I take that to a barbecue contest. I failed miserably. I take it to a blind taste test. I might win, because taste wise, it was phenomenal. Because within the bag, all the natural fat and juices were coming out and basically braising the meat at 140 degrees. So it was just making it tender on the outside. All the flavor from the smoke was staying in the bag, and just really like concentrating all that flavor back into the meat.
Yeah, I'll have to ask my buddy. So I'm friends with he's a barbecue guy. It's Tony Lane. So he's the Dude Network.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's a big barbecue guy. So I'll have to kind of pick his brain. And,
Yeah, ask him about sous vide a brisket, how he would feel about that. He may have some choice words for you.
He has choice words for me no matter what. We're in a fantasy
Yeah.
football league, and we're always just talking shit to each other. So
Yeah. So, but again, the show that somebody who does traditional barbecue, they would like have a meltdown. Like even me, like thinking about it, like like I wouldn't like talk about this in front of like a barbecue guy, because
yeah.
they'd probably get upset about it.
Well, he's from Texas too, and
Yeah.
they always just gonna set. You just mentioned the word barbecue, and we always laugh because we got a guy that in our podcasting group that's in Missouri, and we always talk about Midwest barbecue versus Texas barbecue.
Yep.
And I've had both, and they're both fucking great. I don't know if I could pick a winner. I've had Kansas City barbecue. I've had fucking barbecue in Dallas and Houston, and it's all great, man. You can't pick it apart unless you're like maybe a foodie, like you might be able to be like, all right, well, I think the textures or whatever. Meanwhile, I'm just fucking pounding homemade mac and cheese and brisket and shit. It's not like here in Philly, okay? You're not getting a great barbecue brisket in Philly.
I mean, you're gonna get a great, broccoli raw
Cheesesteak
sandwich. I mean, broccoli raw and turkey. I discovered that last time I was in Philly. I was like, man, this is like way better than a cheesesteak, and this might be like the better sandwich, but no one talks about it because it's got broccoli on it.
We're not going to look at that if there's broccoli on it. But I mean, there's some good stuff here that you just, I don't know, I guess you wouldn't kind of expect, especially like if you're going to like either a traditional like hoagie shop or like an old school cheesesteak place where they're going to do other shit with like roast beef and things like that. It just like melts in your mouth. And
But I think that's the thing. You have regional dishes, and everybody's like, oh well, I know Philly for cheesesteaks. Okay,
Yeah.
well, what about like like Philly pretzels? Like, because that your pretzels are a little bit different, and they're the best. But
So good.
most people when they think about pretzel, it's got to be hard and crispy, and if you get a Philly soft pretzel, it's like this is so much better.
It's mind-bogglingly better. If that's
but again, like most people wouldn't associate like a pretzel in Philly, let alone a soft pretzel in Philly. Like those things don't go together, right? But then in Florida, we don't have like regional dishes other than maybe like grouper, which it's not really a dish; it's a fish, and then we fry it and braise it and do all kinds of fun stuff with it, or shrimp and things like that. But there's no like Florida dish. Maybe key lime pie, but even that, that's like a tourist thing.
What pisses me off though is if I go to Florida or Texas or Missouri and like this is a Philly cheesesteak and it's got fucking like peppers and all this other crazy shit, and I'm like, that's not a cheesesteak from Philly, man. Like if you go here, yeah, people will get peppers in their cheesesteak, but like it's cheese. And that's typically whiz because that's old school, or provolone, right?
Yep.
It's your bun, it's your cheesesteak, it's your steak itself, right? And sometimes you get a chicken cheesesteak, whatever, but most of the time it's a regular cheesesteak. I like chicken cheesesteaks, but then it's either with or without fried onions, and with or without whiz. Those are typically that's like your staple cheesesteak. And there's others that are really, really good, whatever. But I don't know where the fucking pepper thing comes from. Like if I go and I travel for work at the beginning of the year, typically for the first like 6 months, I'll go places like Philly cheesesteak and I'm reading the ingredients. I'm like, who the fuck came up with this recipe? Because they're not from
like
fucking
everywhere
Philly.
I go, it's always green peppers on the cheesesteak. Like what? No.
Why? There's no peppers. If you come to Philly, the staple thing is not peppers. That's not like if you want peppers, great. That's all, but that's not like a staple cheesesteak. I'll eat fried onions on my cheesesteak, but I'm a plain Jane, man. I like just a traditional cheesesteak, extra cheese, and you know what? A lot of people, and this might be underrated, it's the roll that makes a huge difference with the cheesesteak. It's probably second to the actual steak itself, right? So the steak, it depends on where you're going. It could be super fine, it could be super chunky, but the bread also makes a huge difference. And a lot of the places that either make their own bread or have it delivered like, that morning or whatever, those are the places that have just phenomenal cheesesteaks because the bread is just, it's hard to explain. It's like that fresh bread feel.
Well, we have something similar to that in Florida with Cubans. Because everyone will fight over where the Cuban came from. That's the first fight. But then, who has the best one? That's always a fight because everyone has a favorite. And a lot of times the favorite is the bread. This place makes their own bread. This place buys bread, but they buy really good bread. Like you can kind of see where it is. And the place I like to go to, they make everything in-house, start to finish.
That's the way to do it.
They roast their own pork, they roast the ham, they slice the ham. They bake their own bread. They don't make their own butter. That's probably about the only thing they don't make on the entire sandwich. But you probably could do that too if you really wanted to. But it's a similar thing where people will fight over like Cubans, and then I'll go out of town somewhere and order a Cuban, which I don't know why I do that because I'm always disappointed. But thinking that maybe this time it'll be good. No, still not good. But but again, I think they don't understand like what really goes in a Cuban. They just have this commercial idea of a Cuban is some bread, some ham, bacon. There's no bacon on a Cuban, and they'll throw in all kinds of other stuff. Oh, let's put some mayo in. There's no mayo on a Cuban. It's
Some
mustard.
coleslaw. You're like, where the fuck did the coleslaw
I
come
was
from?
like, coleslaw is a side dish. It's it's not no, it doesn't go together. But it's the same thing. Like if you want to be disappointed traveling, order a cheesesteak, order a Cuban. 100% disappointment, unless you're just used to bad sandwiches. That's where I'm at with it.
I will say this: the one thing that I started doing probably over the past maybe year and a half, and I feel like it should be like a blog. I feel like I should start a blog, but I do old fashions at any new restaurant I go to, and it doesn't matter where it is. And I will specifically, I'm a people's person, so I talk to people. I'll always ask the bartender, hey, do you make old fashions here? What's your old fashioned taste like? Because the bartenders, you got to test them, because those are the ones, like, you could get one that tastes amazing and one that tastes like shit, and it could be the same exact bar. It depends on the bartender. So that's like, do you make old fashions here? How is yours specifically? And they always tell me it's great. They always say, oh, it's great.
It's the best old fashioned you'll ever have, because we make our own simple syrup.
Yeah. And I can tell you, I've had them all, probably all over the country, and they're more than 50% not good, and especially the people that are like overly confident. But I've come really close. Like Ocean Prime did something special. Actually, I was in Orlando last year, and I've never seen it before, but they had a special old fashioned. It was a smoked old fashioned. It was the best old fashioned I've ever had, and they're like $35. It was absurd, but it was just that I can't even tell you the taste profile, man. It was like you could taste whatever they smoked it in. The whiskey they used, I feel like, was like a 20-year-old like aged bourbon or something, and it was hands down, it was one of the best old fashions I ever had. I mean, I wasn't gonna buy another one because $35 for a drink, for me, is just absurd. Unless I'm in New York, which is just like an average price for a drink. But so I've had a couple of those in different places, and I feel like the smoked old fashions, I don't know if you've ever had one, but they're they just add an extra element to it.
Yeah, and you can buy the smoke kits for hardly anything, because they're using they're using the same pellets that you use on a pellet grill. At least the places I've been that do it, like at scale, like in a restaurant, it's like, oh, what type of pellets are those? Oh, I use the same ones on my pellet grill. Awesome. But again, it's just a little torch, it's a couple pellets, you smoke it, put the glass on top of it, and just let it hang out. It's the same thing you're doing with smoking a piece of meat. You're just letting it hang out a little bit, absorb some of the flavor, and you pull that glass off and the cloud goes off. It's like, oh, I'm really getting something nice now.
I will tell you another one I had. Have you ever been to Vegas?
I have been to Vegas.
There is a sushi place in it's like one of the like 3-tiered malls in there. And so it's on the Strip, and my fiance was like big on their sushi, and their sushi was amazing. But on the menu, they had a smoked, or I don't know, it wasn't a smoked. It was a chocolate old fashioned. And I said to myself, I'm like, do I want to do it? And I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll try it. And it was really wild. They had it in, like a typical, this is not an old fashioned style glass, but it was kind of like that. And they took a little branch, they lit the branch on fire, so it had a little bit of a fire to it, and it was like a top 3 old fashioned. And I didn't think I was gonna like it, because I like chocolate. I'm a chubby dude, we all love chocolate. And I love old fashions, so you mix them together. But it's not a combination in my head that I'm like chocolate old fashioned. Then I'm like, oh yeah, I really want that. And it was really good. And that's why I love doing the old fashioned thing, because you never know what you're gonna get, and sometimes it's the one that you are iffy about that ends up being just phenomenal.
Oh yeah, that's the fun part of like traveling, and you never know where you're going to end up, because I know people who like make their whole travel plans like, we're going to go to these 3 restaurants, we're going to like they have their whole agenda plan. I like going someplace and then just asking like the locals, like, where would you go? if you're just going out to
Absolutely.
eat, and you
Couldn't
get
agree more.
such better options. And you just never know what you're gonna, where they're gonna send you. Like you make it like, yeah, this place looks kind of divey on the outside. You get inside, like the food's just amazing. And then, to me, those are like the best places to like just find yourself at.
Hands down, hands down. And that's like the first thing I do when I travel. I always, the hotel I'm staying in or people I just have random conversation. Hey, where would you go? What's the place? We did that in Dallas for barbecue. And, we could have went to places that were across the street from the hotel. And it just turned out way better. It was 8 minutes away, an 8-minute Uber. And what we had was just phenomenal barbecue. So, and I feel like more people, like if you're traveling, man, you got to talk to people that know what's going on. And I feel like they're the ones that it's just like if you were to come to here and someone's like, hey, where should I go for a cheesesteak? We're not going to tell you Pat's or Geno's. Those are like the tourist traps.
Yeah, that's the place where you take the photo and like say, I was here. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been around for a decade, but you don't fucking go there. They treat you like shit. Two, their cheesesteaks suck. You got to go somewhere, and everyone has, that's the other thing about Philly too, is like everyone has their own cheesesteak place that they like. For me, it's D'Alessandro's. If you're ever up here, it's not in the city, it's kind of outside the city. For me, they have the best cheesesteaks. But there's other places that have really good cheesesteaks that are like in the city. But if you're doing that, don't go to Pat's and Geno's. But look, we're a little over the hour mark. This is like my sweet spot. I love kind of wrapping it up here. Learn some new things, especially about bagging meat that I didn't think I would learn. So I'm sure you have a ton of information to offer people in your channels. So do me a favor, let everybody know where they can find your content, and if you got anything coming up or anything going on, let them know where they can find it.
Yeah, so at Cook with Bill on Instagram is the main place to find things. I am on TikTok at Cook with Bill also, but if you want the really good content, Instagram's the place to be. If you want to message or ask questions or reach out, that's definitely the primary place to go. Yeah, lots of things coming up in 2024. I have some really great partners, and we're looking to do some exciting things in 2024. Giveaways, launch new products. We may even show up at a few events next year just to help promote what they're doing, what I'm doing, and it's just an exciting time to see where year 3 goes with my account, because it's not even 2 years old, and it's far exceeded anything that I ever thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, I think it's really cool what you do, because you do promote a lot of local places and like smaller. It's not like you're like saying, oh, go buy meat from, what's Omaha. You're like you're supporting like organic things. You're supporting like local and smaller businesses, and I mean, the food looks amazing. So wherever you're getting and wherever you're going, you're making the right decisions with your partners. So you got to appreciate that, because some people like to sell out a little bit and they go for the big stuff, and that's not always where the taste, the good taste and the good stuff comes from. So
well, you got to know where your meat comes from. Maybe I'll end on this one, because this one's really important to me, and it wasn't important when I first started. That what you buy in the grocery store, versus what you buy from a small farm, or something that's being raised differently, is totally different, taste wise, nutrition wise. It makes a huge difference in how you feel, how you live. And I was completely blind by the whole thing when I first started all this. It's go to a grocery store, go buy whatever. It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. You're not getting the vitamins that you should be in your meat. A lot of people eat salmon because it's healthier, right? Or they get told it's healthier. But if you get the right beef, it actually has more nutritional value than a piece of salmon. I mean, and you don't necessarily hear that from your doctor.
I watched some crazy documentaries, and I watched this one, and they say that like the not the farm raised, or is it the farm raised? Whatever the cheap salmon you'd buy from the grocery store is one of the most toxic meats you could purchase from the grocery store, because of all the chemicals and all the crazy shit that they pump into those salmon that just don't go away. It's still in the meat. It's still in the fish when you make it, even if you cook it. And I'm gonna tell you, I've been very skeptical about eating just regular salmon from the grocery store, and even I've seen some stuff about beef as well. And I think it's this is one of those things where it's like, go out there, do your own research, and make sure you support some local farms, some local businesses, and I think you just get better product. You get healthier things, and I think that's important, especially when it comes to meat that you're putting in your body.
Yeah, and if people need recommendations, I got some great partners where it's all ranch to table. There's no middleman. You're buying it directly from the farms, and they'll tell you what they feed their cows. And that's not what you get at the grocery store.
I'm gonna have to hit you up, man, because and do they ship countrywide?
Yeah, so I work with farms in Florida, but I get a lot of meat from Texas. I work with a really great farm in Texas that everything they send me is prime, so it's just beautiful meat, tastes great. Also work with a farm in Missouri that sends me the most magical pork. So I know you don't like pork chops, but I think if you buy one of theirs, it may change your mind. And that's the one I cooked the other day, and it's just magic.
Awesome. Well, you will. We're going to continue this friendship, Bill, because maybe I'll try to become your Padawan to cooking, because I feel like I need it. But look, it was a pleasure having you on. You got a follower in me, and look, my podcast is Drink O'Clock Pod on all socials. I wasn't the biggest Instagram guy. You probably see that from my followers. I was always a Twitter guy. But 99% of the people I talk to use Instagram, so I kind of had to migrate over and bite the bullet. But you can find my podcast anywhere you can listen to podcasts, and this will probably be up next week.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Rob, for having me. This has been great, and we got to get you to Florida and get you a steak so I can ruin you forever.
Yeah. Just ruin my steak profile for the rest of my life. I appreciate it, Bill.
Absolutely.
Look, you have a great night, man, and thank you so much for hopping on.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Thanks.